Hi everyone, we've got a Drive Like a Driving Instructor video today, and as you've probably seen by the title, it's all about steering. This is probably the most natural thing that natural drivers do instinctively. They just do it. For me to go around this corner, I don't even think about it, it just happens. However, in today's video, we're going to be looking at why people get it wrong, and I'm going to try and give you a few tips and techniques regarding what you should be doing with your hands. So, first things first, notice there when I was going around that corner, I was leaning out of my seat. This is the first thing that I'd like to talk about. People don't do this very well. They're bolted to this backrest all the time, and they'll only sit from here. They won't lean to get a better view. They won't move in the seat to look around these pillars, and it's a common problem, and it's why a high number of collisions and accidents happen. So yeah, moving in your seat. What other factors do people need to have a little think about when they're steering? We'll go into a little bit of a few examples a little touch further up. I've got to make my way into Liverpool city centre. I'm just going to wait here a second just to see where this one goes in front. But yeah, what other factors are there regarding steering? Well, there are a number of things. Hand position on the wheel is super important. Grip is super important. Grip is one of the big skills that honestly affects how people drive. I've got 6 major skills, 5 in general, which are grip of the wheel, target fixation, steering to avoid, lack of adjustment of feet, and where to look to steer. And the 6th one is listening. Listening is only really a skill that affects manual cars, doesn't matter as much in automatics. So those first 5 skills are the main skills that people struggle with, and honestly, you driving instructors, if you're trying to fix faults, don't fix subjects, fix the skills, and those 5 skills are responsible for a majority of things that people do wrong. But steering, this is what we're going to talk about. Grip wise, people grip the wheel far too tight. I've done a couple of videos where I've mentioned this before about grip. If you take both feet off the pedals, if you don't use your feet in the correct manner, it is going to affect your hands and your grip. Grip wise, you can't just say you should have a light grip, should have a medium grip, should have a heavy grip, because it's all different for all of us. We perceive light, medium and heavy in a different way. Best thing that I've come up with recently is hold your steering wheel in the same sort of way as if you had 2 eggs in your hand. You don't need any more pressure than that. People think that you've got to wring the steering wheel's neck, but you don't. Going back to my former career as a footballer, even striking the football, when you used to kick a ball, you're not tense all the way through. You're tense at the point of impact. Any people who have done any boxing or anything like that, you don't, when you punch, you don't punch all tense because you're really slow, you're relaxed, and just before the impact is when you tense up. Really important, and you use this in many different things. Well, I've used this in many different things, sports-wise, that I've done, even a game of golf. Nice and relaxed until that point of impact. So it's the same with the steering wheel. If you're not relaxed with your grip, you're not going to be able to move it quick enough. People think that you've got to wring its neck, and that actually reduces control. So grip is the first thing. Hand position is the next thing. Where should your hands be positioned? Well, look at this balloon. Where should your hands be positioned? People say about your thumbs not wrapping around the inside. I'm going to go on to that in a minute. But thumbs, honestly, still for me, anywhere in between quarter to 9 and 10 to 10, anywhere around here, so you can operate these things. But there's no set position for me. You know, there's certain talk nowadays of preference of one over the other, but I've still seen no information that tells me that you shouldn't have your hands here or you shouldn't have your hands here. I've already gone into my poor habit of dropping my hands down, and that dropping your hands down comes from when risk is low. But you'll see with what I'm doing today, when there's stuff to do, my hands are up. So anywhere there. I am going to have a little talk about as well the pull-push method of steering. And I often seen people, or have seen people on YouTube as well, say it should be one of the first things that you forget as soon as you pass your test. I'm going to try and prove why you shouldn't. So the other thing we said about those skills, grip is one, where to look to steer is also something that I'm going to try and go into a fair bit of detail, and I've got a few examples here. I'm not going to show them just yet, but I've got a few examples of or how it goes wrong when people don't look in the correct direction. So where to look to steer then? If you sit too close to the wheel, I call people like that bonnet lickers. It's generally because they're trying to get a better view down over the front of the bonnet, and it's not that over the bonnet that tells you your direction and where you should be going. You may have heard me say a few times over the last year, I've really pushed it into my teaching about where your left knee is. Where your left knee is, and where you perceive your left knee, is where the middle of the car is, and you don't need to be looking down at points over the bonnet to do that. I can look up and around and know exactly where my left knee is. My left knee is tracking over the U of bus, and that's exactly where the middle of my my car is. So you can work things out like that, no problems. When people look too close over the bonnet, what they're going to do is look at the curb to the left, panic and steer away from it, and then they're going to look at the line down here, panic and steer away from it, and they zigzag down the road. Even other experiences that I've had, I remember having a helicopter lesson for my 40th birthday, and the helicopter trainer said to me, "Oh, look up to the horizon," and I went, yeah, I've got it. I'm forever telling people where to look on a helicopter, though. You haven't just got this side-to-side movement, you've also got up and down, so you're sorting it out by looking nice and far. When you see far, or when you look far, you can see close, but when you see close or when you look close, you can't see far. It's really, really important. So, little example of where we're going to steer. Just have a little look at my hands first of all whilst I do this steer. Now, where am I looking? I'm holding with this one. I'm actually looking to this direction when I want to go that way, so I'm not staring forward. I've made my assessment, I'm looking towards and I'm pulling down with my right hand, checking there again, and notice how I'm pulling back with my left. This then allows me to get gears at pretty good times. This is one of the other benefits that I'm going to try and just demonstrate. So quite simply, when you're turning right, you're looking in this quarter, so from here out to there. When you're turning left, you're looking in the other quarter down that side. People always look towards where the car points. These are the people who do it incorrectly. People are obsessed with the car's pointing that way, I've got to get it pointing that way, and that's not how we steer. You're effectively steering the sides of the car. Think about following your mirror if you're turning right around the bend. Think about if you're turning left, following your left mirror around the bend. So here, right hand comes up and I'm pulling down. Look where my hands have finished. Whilst going around the corner, they were still in this position. It's sort of like a boxer's guard. So right hand to pull out, cool, and left hand to pull back. Yeah, it's like a boxer's guard. In other words, I'm always ready to defend myself. So here, I'm going to get the gear and I'm pulling down with my left, and look at my hands again. Reaching up, pulling down, and as soon as I've finished, I can hold and I can get the gear on the corner. Now, if I was crossing my hands at that point, I'm just gonna do this theoretically to save me going round about again. Saying that, there is one a little bit further up I might go around to show. But if I was doing my turn there, going round the roundabout and crossing my hands, my hands would be over like this. I'm going to just do this as a come to a slow here and a stop. We are going to be stopping because the green man's on, which is good. So I'll get here and stop. So if I was heading round to the right and I was crossing, my hands would be there. How would I left signal? And that's the key. People say, oh, forget this pull push, it's not as quick. It's not quite as quick. Oops, turned my rear windscreen wiper on by mistake. So that's another thing. If your hands are haphazard in that crossing motion, you're gonna, this fella coming in, no, you could be knocking the wipers like I've just done. If your hands are nice and loose and relaxed, that's not going to happen. So if you cross your hands, you're also going to have problems signalling as you're leaving roundabouts. Absolutely will have problems doing that. And it's exactly the same about choosing gears on corners. If you steer in a proper way, let's just give you a little example of this. Left hand comes up and I'm leaning, I'm looking far. Look at that. If I needed to change gear, I could. And then I pull back straight. Although we didn't really need third there, my car helped us out a little bit. But lifting your hands up and pulling round and getting the steering set then allows you to change gear, but it also allows you to check your mirrors and signal and do things on the corner. Changing gear on a corner is not a problem as long as you're not steering and gearing. What I did there in the corner, it wasn't steering and gearing. I'd already set my steering up and I held it still, so that's totally fine. But let's just go back and analyse what I did at that corner. I was leaning in my seat, reached up, looked far as well. Don't look close. If you look really, really close, you're only going to steer for the floor and you'll never get your steering set. You'll be zigzagging around the corner. If you look far, you'll steer for the whole corner. As soon as you can get it set and your hands are in the correct position, your left hand's effectively redundant. You can either change gear or check your mirrors and signal. No problems. We've got another roundabout coming up. I'm just going to have a little look here about where I am following. I'm going to explain where I am following. I'm going to go ahead where the traffic lights are at the opposite side. So I've got my gear in before the bend, left hand's up, and I'm pulling round. Now I'm following my right knee around the centre line of the road. Notice I'm changing my head position depending on what part of the corner I'm at to get a best view around this. Super important. Okay, no worries there. Just keep an eye on these lights and this one behind. So what I said there about my right knee is effectively the right side of my car. What I've said about my left knee is tracking in the middle. Great, no problems. My right knee is effectively where my right wheels are. So when I'm going round a right bend, I lean and I track my right knee around on that situation where the centre line of the roundabout was. Although there was no dedicated road marks, there was, and there still is, like a join line in the middle that we can often use to help ourselves out with things. So, where to look to steer is massively important. When people look towards where the car points, especially on steering heavy situations like roundabouts, when we're talking about steering heavy, where steering is constantly involved, or you're involved with the steering constantly, that's when people have problems because they don't get any break from the steering to then do the other things, and it just goes pear-shaped. Say hello to Steve. He did recognise me. Okay, no problems. So just have a little thought about even little steers like we've got here over the next two corners. It's not really a steer. Think of it as a pressure, and it only takes a tiny little pressure. And here it should be my left hand. I'm going to reach up a little more because I'm steering round a little more, and then I'm reaching back and then I'm straightening. And like I said, it always gives me my hands up and ready, and like I've explained the analogy, like a boxer's guard, you're always there ready to defend yourself, and that's pretty important. Okay, no problems. The pull push technique, we're just going to have a little look at this. My left hand operates this half of the wheel, my right hand operates this half, and they're like a mirror image of each other apart from when we start off. So I'm going to reach and I'm going to pull down, and as I pull down this one drops, and I can push back up if I need to, but I don't need to there. The corner itself wasn't that sharp. That is a further point that just try and recognise within your own driving. If you struggle with this pull push, it might be because you're doing it all in one movement. One big movement, so a big pull down left. We don't want our hands, as I've said, to finish down at the bottom. So say if you needed that much steer, don't do that much. Do that much and then push back up with the other so your hands can finish again back in that guard position. Hands up and ready to defend yourself, because this is really what we're doing in the car as well. To do that, I've already mentioned grip. You can't do it if your hands are gripping and grabbing, and this is constantly what we see from pupils. Let's have a little look at this left turn that I'm going to do. Some sharpnesses of corner will require me to look into the windscreen in this corner. When you get a sharper corner, the further you follow it down near towards your mirror. So the sharpest corners are virtually at right angles next to your mirror. This one, I think it's going to be in the window, and you alter your seating position to then follow the curve and reach up and straighten. Easy enough. So you're never going to see the curve that you're following or the line that you're following. If it's a right-sided turn, you're never going to see that in exactly the same spot. It changes with the sharpness. It also changes uphill or downhill. Sometimes you've got to alter your position. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to turn right at this next set of lights and just try and demonstrate that here, that we're going to do a sharper turn. When I come out of this corner, this is when I'm just going to quickly talk about where to look to straighten up and how we go about straightening. So there's a couple of little extra points that we can go off and talk about here. When I'm doing a turn, how do I even gauge where to get up to? It's looking out of the right hand side. So again, people struggle with this if they're those bonnet lickers and bonnet watchers and they're just peering down over the front. You can't gauge how sharp the corner is, and they're the type of people who also don't look into their exit road before they turn, because they start to turn, they then look, and that's when they're going to miss a cyclist or miss someone crossing the road or miss the obstructions in that lane. So another little point, sorry, all these little things are just buzzing round in my head, as you can see. I'm looking at this side when I'm getting to where I need to do my stop, and this is another little benefit of actually looking towards the direction you want the car to go to, because as I look over here as I start the steer, I'm looking up and around my left or my right mirror, and as I do that I can then honestly check whether there's anyone overtaking me. And exactly the same goes to the left, that if I'm looking at this quarter and this corner as I'm doing the left, I then get the view whether there's any cyclists coming up that side. And people who stare at the front, they will not do that, they cannot do that. So super important. Another reason why we do the steering in these ways, and this is the other reason why I'm having this little video today. So this corner is a little sharper and it's slightly downhill. That sometimes means it disappears underneath my bonnet and I might have to wait a little longer and see it by my mirror to the left. Don't actually know. You can't tell for certain. This is one of the ones I would say that's sort of like potentially going to be stuck behind my pillar, but I would expect even with this sharpness that I'm still going to be able to see it in the corner of the window. If you don't get your correct seating position height-wise, this will affect this as well. So you can't sit too low and steer effectively on the roads. People always go, oh, I want to sit low, feel connected to the car, like on a racetrack. This ain't a racetrack. Back onto where I'm going to be looking. Watch to see where I'm going to be looking. Have a little look to see how I operate my hands. But we're going to be talking about straightening. When you straighten up, you should be straightening. It's not always the same as well, usually around about 2/3 of the way around the corner. So yes, I can see it in the corner, held still, can get the gear, reach up with my right, and my eyes are out the other side of the white Audi out there. So as I come out of the corner, I lift my eyes up, and yes, you follow the inside of the bend. So there I was following the left curve as I was going around the corner, but you actually should straighten up with the opposite side. You should straighten up with the central line. And the same goes vice versa when you're turning right. You'll follow your center line generally, and then you're going to be straightening up with whatever is to the left. Lifting your eyes further up enables you to correct the movement, not where you point. If you look towards where you point, honestly, you'll struggle straightening up. You're going to be cutting corners, you're going to be all sorts of stuff. And this is a perfect time for me to let you have a little look and let me do a little bit of a voiceover with these few clips that we're going to have a look at. If the driver of this minibus had been looking across to the left, they would have spotted my viewer much earlier. It was obvious they hadn't seen my viewer because they weren't adjusting speed, and it wasn't wide enough for two. This was a good spot and good horn use from my viewer. A perfect example of the vehicle on the left trying to point the front round to the right without looking right. This car turning into this junction does the same and nearly takes out this front cyclist. Very likely to be little seat movement and definitely staring over the bonnet for that one. And as you'll see with this clip, the usual trait is to turn in too early. Look how far to my viewer's side of the road this next driver gets when they take this corner up ahead. Nice VFO footage, by the way. Use the links in the description and the code Ashley and save yourself 5%. The scary thing is, drivers like this don't even know they're doing it. So hopefully you can see by those little examples that I've just given the problems that can be caused by people looking over the bonnet, turning in too early, then they get stuck and they don't see things behind these pillars, they don't move in the seat. It's all the things I've demonstrated and I've talked about. This is something as well that people are a little bit lax on. I'm not going to start saying a lackadaisical, as I was corrected on a previous video. Lackadaisical. I've always said it lackadaisical. Anyway, we're not going into that. What we're going to do is have a little look at a couple of steers a little bit further up. And what I'm going to try and do, I'm going to quickly try and demonstrate how to do it wrong. I know that seems bizarre, but if you realise where you're going wrong, you'll have a better chance of fixing it, rather than just going, yeah, see what you mean, Ash, yeah, racks your hands, where to look, yeah, got that. Putting into practice is totally different, but people are lax with this vital, important skill. Like you said, the people who do it well, it's just utterly instinctive and utterly natural. Am I saying, by the way, crossing the hands isn't a problem? I'm going to turn right here. I'm just going to cross my hands with this one. Is crossing the hands a problem? No, it's not even on the driving test. Done. But I'll still do it smoothly coming back, and that's generally how it works. You generally apply the steer quicker than you take it off. And that brings me on to another point that I've not mentioned yet. If you're grabbing the wheel, you're very one-paced. You'll just do things honestly, routinely, and you won't be able to alter your speed. Now, what I'm going to do here, I am going to turn left. I'm going to think about where I would be pointing. Where I'm pointing makes me steer left now, and I'm not looking where I'm going. You imagine the problems. It's mad that people actually think that's safe. They just stare away. They think, I've got to point the front round there, and they look in the opposite direction. They don't look towards where the car goes. Absolutely bizarre. I'm going to have another little go at this traffic light here. We are going to turn right. Do you do any of those things that we've highlighted, or the opposite? Don't you do the things that I've highlighted with my steering here as well? If so, try and tweak it, because there's a big link between that and driving safely. People think, like I said right at the beginning, it's the first thing you should do when you pass your test is stop passing your hands around. Let me tell you this, if you are able to still do the pull push correctly whilst you're driving at the pace that you drive, it shows good planning. For example, I've looked into my exit road, I've spotted the cyclist, and I know exactly how much I can pull it round. That's why I can steer with one hand. People who don't plan arrive at that particular situation, haven't planned, cross their hands, they're driving too fast for the sharpness of the corner because they haven't planned, and then they don't see the cyclist and then they run them over. And that's a nice little way to just call this video to an end. I've got to head down to Liverpool 1. We're going on the inside of the car park, down underneath Liverpool shopping centre. I've got to pick something up, so I'm going to head down in there. Have you got any questions with any of the things that I've talked about? Is there anything that you would like me to answer? Please ask them in the comments. Another little video that I've already done, I did a lesson with a student, Isabel, a few weeks back about steering. That is on the members, the part 3. In fact, what I'm going to do when I stick that out, I'm going to put that one for members only. All members across the board, whether it's the stage 1, the part 2 or the part 3 membership. I'm going to stick that on. If you are a member, please check that out, because it shows you to the extent that people have got to learn this art of steering to then become comfortable on the road. And Isabel, she's gripped the wheel for too tight for too long, but we did help her out a fair bit, and her reaction at the end of that video was absolutely brilliant. So please do check that out. Thank you to all the members as well for your support. It means so much that people support my quest for our safer roads. I hope the steering videos helped. We've got a nice view of the liver buildings as I come down the Strand, so we're going to leave it there, and we will see you all next time. Take care and relax those hands.